Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a great weekend. I'm very privileged to have you start your week here with John Martin Talks. I don't take it for granted. I greatly appreciate it. But I had a glorious weekend. I went fishing and was out on the Gulf of Mexico literally from Friday afternoon till early Sunday morning. And it was a little bit of wind, waves, sun, moon therapy, I suppose. The only real problem is the fish themselves seem to take a little social distancing to heart because they were few and far between. It was a bit scarce than normal. I did catch some decent ones, but it was a bit slow, but being out on the Gulf of Mexico is never a bad thing. You ought to try it sometime. Anyway, we start with a story out of California. We got a great show for you today. There is hope springing up in California. There is a town out there that has declared itself a sanctuary city. No, you say, well, there's a lot of sanctuary cities. Not the one that you're thinking of. A sanctuary city if you want to open your business and conduct your affairs in a public way. They are a sanctuary, and we'll get more into that in just a moment. And then, of course, the Biden follies, or however you want to call it, his search for a VP is taking many twists and turns. He's already, of course, declared it's going to be a woman no matter what. But now people are thinking about how long Biden will actually serve. Will he serve a single term, 2 terms, or even a partial term? And all of that appears to be affecting his vice presidential choice. Of course, I'm sure many of you share my hope that he serves exactly as many terms as president as he's already served. Our hero, zero. And then we're going to get into a little bit about Corona Land. How do you survive if you're living in fear and you think that we are forever changed, we're fundamentally changed, that we are now Corona Land? How do you survive that? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But we start with a little hope in California. This is from a Breitbart story. Got to give them a little credit there. Central California town declares itself a sanctuary city from lockdown, open for business. So they're not your typical sanctuary city. They're saying, hey, we're a sanctuary if you want to get away from the ridiculous BS that's happening in California. In California's Central Valley, where farmers grow the food Americans eat and shops provide goods for them and their families, the coronavirus era is coming to a close. Now, I don't know if that's actually true. I mean, whether or not the virus, see, that's the thing. It's all or nothing now. You're either like 100% in Corona Land, or you're basically, I guess a drag of society, or maybe even a deplorable. Heaven knows. But there's no ifs, ands, or buts. You're either 100% living in fear. I'm not saying the American people are, but that's how they're being portrayed. Either you're taking the virus serious, or you're just out there in a boat with a Trump flag on it or something. It's just crazy. The coronavirus era is coming to a close as Atwater, that's the name of the town, declares itself a sanctuary city where businesses and churches are open. I'm not talking about the chicken place, although, if you're in the South, you probably get some chicken after church. But businesses and churches are opening their doors. But yet, so California City is opening, but are you still free to defecate on the streets? No offense to Atwater, but San Francisco, I think that's been, allowed the whole time. You can get your needles and what I call your San Francisco birthday cake, which is a pile of poop and needles sticking out of it. But finally, California is getting something right. We make a lot of fun of California, but I do it with a certain sadness in my heart, because I don't know about how old you are and all, but when I was growing up, man, California was the bomb. Everybody wanted to go to California. That's where, that's why the Beach Boys were so popular. Girls everywhere, surfing USA, man. California dreaming, the moms and the pops. That was what it was all about. California used to be the jewel of the nation. There was no question about that. California and I say this with all due respect to my own state, but California was the dream. It was the greatest state in the country, one of the greatest places on earth. And during my lifetime, I never thought it would go from the jewel to the stool, where you literally have a poop map for getting around places like San Francisco. And I've been out there a few times, and I loved California, but I don't know if I want to go back. But finally, they're getting something right out there. Think about California, man. It was founded by the hardiest of people out there. I mean, L.A. now is basically their mayor, Garcetti, is saying it's going to be shut down until further notice. You think the 49ers, who risk life and limb to cross this great country, to cross the Great Divide and go out there, would believe that California has now become the most terrified state in the nation? It's just hard to believe, but it's real. The San Francisco Chronicle describes the move, this Atwater, this little defiant town, in defiance. They described it as in defiance of California's shelter-in-place order. But the people who live there, talking about Atwater, believe it's about their survival. And it's about living too. Not from dodging the virus, but from draconian lockdown that cost people their livelihoods. So I looked up the word defiance to see how they were using it here. And I got to tell you, I think it's in perfect context to what Atwater is doing. And as I read this definition of defiance, to me, it basically describes the foundation of our country. Defiance, open resistance, bold disobedience. Isn't that how our nation was actually founded? By open resistance and bold disobedience? Remember what they said about when they signed the Declaration of Independence? If we don't hang together, we'll surely hang separately. Our country was founded with open resistance, bold disobedience. It was founded on a grudge to a certain extent, on a complaint. I mean, if you look at it, it wasn't founded in fear, I'll give you that. The city council heard from a parade, talking about the one in Atwater, of business owners, pastors, and residents on Friday who described pandemic-related hardships. Many insisted they would be responsible and keep the community safe by following safe practices like wearing face masks and keeping social distance. So they're actually going up there in California, of all places, and saying, hey, I'll be personally responsible. I thought in California, to actually still be a resident there, you had to blame everybody else but yourself. You're a victim. California has come from the 49ers to the victimhood state. I am joyous to read you this story. And I know there are a lot of great people in California still hanging in there because they tune in quite regular to JMT, man. And they chime up on Facebook. I really appreciate that. Hit me up. Tell me what you think. I'll respond to it as quickly as I possibly can. But resident Caleb Hampton, I hate singling out individual people, but he put his name out there. He was the lonely voice. He's the only one that spoke against, apparently, opening up the city or declaring it a sanctuary for being open. A lonely voice for upholding the shelter order said there was little proof people would be responsible in protecting public health, as evidenced by those attending the council meeting, most without masks, including the council members themselves. Hampton, of course, wore a mask. And I'm not opposed to wearing masks. I do think we've gotten a bit silly, and there's very little science backing up the way we're wearing them and required to wear them. And most people have zero knowledge of how to wear a mask. Let me just give you, and I'm sure Facebook, algorithm, I got to please Al. I don't mean any offense, but I'm not a professional, but I'm telling you, if you've been out in public wearing a mask for a while, you take the mask off and put it on top of your head for a while and then put it down, you might as well throw that mask away because it is contaminated. I'm just going out on a limb here. And you probably don't need a mask if you're alone in your car. I'm just saying, you probably don't. Not wearing one anyway. But this guy Hampton, I don't think he's much of a fan of Patrick Henry, do you? Because you remember old Patrick Henry, fella that said, give me liberty or give me death. If you read the extended quotes from Patrick Henry, and I'm a big fan of old Patrick, man. How you doing, Patrick? I miss you, buddy. But when he was talking about give me liberty or give me death, he was actually talking about how just living, simply existing, is not enough. That if you are a free person, a free rugged individualist, that this country was founded on, then living is not enough. And it's amazing. And so that's what he's talking about when he says, give me liberty or give me death. If I got to be a prisoner, I'd rather be dead. I mean, that's basically what he's saying. And it amazes me how far we have strayed from the founding of this nation, not only by the laws and rules and regulations, by the attitude of some of our people. We were not, now there's always been a mixed bag in the United States, so I'm not trying to say that it was always perfect by any stretch. Never was perfect because it was founded by people who are full of imperfections. Isn't there a book out there that talks about something about people falling short of the glory? It's something we ought to dig out and maybe read again sometime. It's out there somewhere. But our country was found. Think about the people who found. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. Our country was founded by people who were willing to get on rickety old wooden ships and come across the great ocean at the time. Had to be a scare. Took them weeks to get there, months even, and they did it. And then it took people, once they got on the land, to literally hone out eke out a living there. And then people picked up and decided, go west, young man. And they went west. And then eventually people turned around and said, you know, this king thing ain't working too good here. Maybe we ought to try a new experiment called the United States of America. My point being that our country was founded, we're standing on the shoulder of giants, really. And they're just common people who had the courage and the desire to be free. What happened to us? I mean, and I'm not downplaying the threat of coronavirus. I'm not saying that. But what happened to us that we're just going to huddle in a corner and wait for government to tell us that it's safe outside of the cave, which if you've been watching my show any length of time, you know I'll tell you it has never been safe to leave the cave. But this Hampton fella, who was the lone protester of opening the city back up, said, how many people came up and touched this lectern, in other words, at the commission meeting? And then was it ever disinfected? So I guess after everybody's supposed to be like, you know, people wear a hazmat suit and like shoot it with foam or something. The council has pressed this narrative that small businesses can be responsible to implement these guidelines on their own, but I don't see any evidence of that in daily activities even here. It's really become a PC pandemic, hasn't it? I mean, our country is moving in the direction, or has been, in the direction of political correctness. And it is really, you talk about something that has been a pandemic and has infected our country. Political correctness, man, it is killing us. And it has even infected this pandemic where literally you are chastised if you don't wear a mask. I mean, it's just amazing how you can go outside and people will literally look at you like you are the virus incarnate. You are Captain Corona. You know, maybe I've been Captain Whitebread before. I hadn't brought that guy out in a while, but maybe I'll be Captain Corona, living boldly. It's just crazy. The members of the city, and I'm not opposed to wearing masks. I just think the way we're going about it doesn't make a lot of sense. Not based on science. The members of the city council, without discussion, according to the Chronicle, passed unanimously a resolution affirming the city's commitment to fundamental constitutional rights and declaring the city of Atwater a sanctuary city for all businesses. First of all, tip of the hat to them, official tip of the Make Fishing Great Again hat to the city of Atwater, unanimous. But what stood out to me in this paragraph is it said that they made the vote. Now, they heard from all these people, pro and one con, and they made the vote without discussion. Now, I'm sure they called for discussion, but there apparently wasn't any. And they're surprised by that. I'm not, actually. I mean, what is there really to discuss? If you believe in the U.S. Constitution, if you took an oath to the Constitution, which you do, by the way, when you're sworn in as a city council member, you take an oath to the United States of America and to usually your state constitution as well. But if you believe in the Constitution, if you're not like that governor of New Jersey where you go, you know, the Bill of Rights never even crossed my mind. I mean, what is there to discuss? The right to open your business, the right to enter a business, the peacefully assemble, church, all the freedom of religion, all that kind of stuff is written in the Constitution. There's nothing to discuss unless you don't believe that. Then there might be a whole lot to discuss. But and what really troubles me is not the lack of discussion in Atwater, but the lack of discussion we had before we shut down to start with. Because and if you're new to the show, you might freak out on this, but I question, and I'm a staunch supporter of the president, but I question anyone having the authority from, as I say, from the outhouse to the White House and Park Avenue to Park Bench. Who has the authority to just shut us down absent martial law? And some of this has been done by bureaucrats like health officials and all. And I'm not downplaying the threat of the virus. I'm not even saying that some of the stay-at-home orders weren't necessary or weren't scientifically based. But the idea that you could just basically shut down American business with little or no conversation troubles me a great deal. And the fact that many Americans just took it in stride bothers me even more, because we're only as great as our people. We elect, my dad used to say all the time, keep in mind we get the government we deserve because we elected these yahoos. The people in Atwater seem to have done a good job there. But the fact that there wasn't any discussion to reopen the city and declare it a sanctuary city doesn't bother me at all, because they obviously agree on the Constitution. The lack of discussion bothers me on the other end, shutting us down to start with and trying to keep us that way. Council members said the measure also applies to churches. Hallelujah. This is an interesting combination. This tells you a lot about Atwater right here. Their Chamber of Commerce president, Don Borgerwart, I guess, Borgerwardet. There's not too many Borgerwardets in Hawthorne where I live. President Don Borgerwardet, who is also a local pastor. So the guy's a preacher and he's the head of the Chamber of Commerce. Man, amen. Had made a plea for people to be allowed back inside the houses of worship. Think about that. You got to make a plea to open up the church again. And I'm not opposed to churches being socially distant or whatever they need to be. But keeping them closed is actually unconstitutional. Now, if we want to change the Constitution, if this pandemic is so great that we need to change the Constitution, then let's have that discussion. But just keeping them shut down because it's the flavor of the moment is just crazy to me. It's hard to have fear and faith at the same time. That's probably one of the reasons why we are so fearful. Somebody ought to do a scientific study on that. There's probably a direct correlation between the lack of faith in our nation and the amount of fear. One goes down, the other goes up. But here's what Mr. Bogerwart, and I apologize, Mr. Bogerwart, for not pronouncing your name right, because you seem to be a hero type to me. He said if they don't open up, they're going to be in really bad state. He's talking about the businesses. And we're going to have bankruptcies and foreclosures, and we're just going to have families that are decimated financially. Preach on, pastor and president of the Chamber of Commerce. Preach on, sir. Mayor Paul Creighton said it's time to do the right thing and listen to the people who put us here. Oh my God, did this guy not get the memo? A California politician listening to the people? You talk about an endangered species, man. There's one for you. We want you guys to survive and thrive. It's really critical that the elected in this country, and especially this state, start listening to you. There's a unique concept. Listen to the people. But, what was that thing? Some of the little documents said a government by the people and for the people. And I think Abraham Lincoln said, shall not perish from the world, or the earth, or whatever. I mean, there's some truth in some of these documents. We might ought to dust them off a little bit, man, because they've definitely been shelved during this pandemic. But he said, but listen to the people. But there's a danger out there of listening to the people, let me tell you, because some of those people might be dregs of society, might be basket full of deplorables. I saw some pictures that just did my heart good. I tried to pull them up again this morning and couldn't find them, but they're out there for sure. And I know this is happening all over the country, certainly all over my state here, but up in Jacksonville, Florida, which is in northeast portion of Florida, they had like a naval brigade, so to speak, a private, not the real Navy, but a people's Navy, and it was Trump all the way, man. Flags flying in the bay there at the St. Johns River. It was incredible, the sights I saw. But Mr. Creighton later told the Merced Sun Star that the whole city, talking about, what is the name of that city again? Get it right on. Atwater. I got to give Atwater credit, man. I need to go visit there. Put that on my bucket list to go visit Atwater. But Creighton, the mayor later told the Merced Sun-Star that while the city would take no action against anyone who reopened outside the state's guidelines, local businesses were taking their own risk by reopening. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is exactly, if you watch my show any length of time, first of all, where you been? Secondly, howdy, how are you? Great to have you here. But that's the way it should be. We should now be at the point where we are challenged to assess our own risk. And if we're willing to, here's what I don't get. I don't see how this is lawful at all. If a business wants to reopen and a customer wants to go in and purchase the goods or services from that business, what other business of anyone else is it? I don't see anything that's a problem with that. I mean, now we have one thing about it. I mean, American heroes come in all shapes or sizes. Did you really, and this is no slight to these folks or whatever, as a matter of fact, it is a tip of the hat to them. Did you ever think that the heroes of our country would be barbers and beauticians and restaurant owners, that those would be the new heroes? I guess I shouldn't be surprised, because that's always been the heroes. It's always been the heroes that made America great to start with. And yes, Governor Cuomo, America has always been great. You just haven't been able to see it. And Donald Trump is making sure that that not only do we stay great, but he's going to make us great again, double down. Who else could do it? Who could make America great one time and then turn around and do it again? That's what Donald Trump, I believe, if we give him the chance, is going to do. On Saturday, County Sheriff Vernon Warnke said on Facebook that he will not, and our county sheriffs are certainly stepping up to the plate in many parts of the country, and they have been for a while, said that he will not be taking any enforcement action against this county for any of the COVID-19 violations, according to his Facebook post, the Chronicle reported. The sheriff said the citizens themselves can make informed decisions on how to proceed and protect their lives and livelihood. Amen. And not the governor of a state, the Facebook post said. So could coronavirus have a silver lining? It appears to me that it could. Now, let me just say, and I hate that I have to caveat all this, but old algorithm's liable to get me. I am not saying anything negative about people dying. I'm like President Trump. If one dies from coronavirus, it's one too many, and we're approaching like 80,000 or more now dead in the country. That's tragic. And we could literally have, 100,000 more. I don't think we're going to get to the millions and millions, but, everything is possible. But is coronavirus going to have a silver lining? In that silver lining, could it be reminding us of who we are, where we came from? Sorry, I guess I'm jumpy there. That belt buckle fell down and got me startled there, man. I thought it was Corona Man coming after me. But anyway, a silver lining that we remember who we are, that we're a nation built on faith, not on fear, that we're a nation built on picking up the musket when the one guy falls down, the flag, pick it up and keep charging. California, which we're talking about, is the land of the 49ers, not the fear of our behinders, not over in the corner. The 49ers, for God's sake, the people who risk life and limb hunting their American dream. That's what California, that's why it was the dream, because it was built by people pursuing the American dream at all costs. I mean, it's just sad, but maybe we're starting to get back. Maybe we're getting truly woke to what we were, what we have lost, and what we could be, either plus or minus. And the choice really at this point is, are we going to continue to be a nation of rugged individualists under the U.S. Constitution? Or are we just going to be Corona land? Because it's in the balance there. And remember what old Ben Franklin said right there, that when asked by that lady in Philadelphia, well, what have you given us? He said, a republic, if you can keep it. That statement is as true today as it was then. We have a republic if we can keep it. And the biggest threat to life, limb, and property right now is not Corona. It is the ending of this experiment we call the United States of America. That is the gravest threat that we're facing right now. All right, we're going to move on. We're going to talk a little bit about Joe Biden. We're going to come back to Corona here in just a minute. For those of you who are obsessed on it, it's hard not to be, really, I guess. But this is an AP story. Check my time, doing good. Joe Biden, vice president here. Biden's VP search puts spotlight on how long he'll serve if elected. Now, before I go any further, I got to give some props to JMT, man. I got to give some props to old DJT, Donald J. Trump, man. He over the weekend, I was fishing, so I didn't hear it till I got back home. But he said something about Biden being Punxsutawney Phil, the groundhog, that like, no matter what he sees, he's going back in his cave or hiding no matter what. And then he nicknamed him Hiding Biden. I mean, you got to look. I mean, those of you who freak out and say that's that's unpresidential for Jim to call him Hiding Biden, Punxsutawney Phil. I hate to tell y'all this, but there are people out there, including myself and Billy Bob. He's my psychic sidekick, by the way. Yeah, I'm a fish whisperer. Some of us are sicker than others. His Billy Bob Bass 1 on Twitter, at Billy Bob Bass 1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. But those of you who are out there going, that's unpresidential, he's unhinged. Well, first of all, we can't wait till President Trump is reelected. You think he's unhinged, wait till he's unleashed. But there are many of us that's the guy we voted for. That's the dude we're going to, as some of the memes says, crawl through glass, stand in line, whatever, to vote for in 2020, whatever we got to do to reelect the man. That guy that said Hiding Biden and Punxsutawney Phil, I mean, that's the Trump we love. I hate to break it. I know y'all don't understand it, and you probably never will. But there are a lot of us, I know I'm not alone, that love the guy for that stuff. You can call it whatever you want. But back to this article here. Joe Biden said, I'm sorry, I got to do a little adjustment. There we go. Joe Biden has longed to win the White House for more than 3 decades. Yeah, he's born wanting to be president, I guess. If he finally makes it there after November's election, he's already talking about leaving. So he's already saying, I might have to leave early, I might have to exit stage left. Let me tell you a little bit about Joe, man. Joe Biden, I know this is going to really break some hearts out there, but Joe Biden has always been a lousy candidate. He's still a lousy candidate. Yeah, he's the presumptive nominee, but the only reason Biden is even in the conversation is Trump derangement syndrome. Biden ran 3 times, never won a single primary, never even came in, I even think, third in a caucus or primary until he won in South Carolina. He was a lousy candidate going into South Carolina. He's a lousy one coming out. And he could be president of the United States. That's the scary part, because I keep telling y'all this, and I'm all for Trump 2020, Trump landslide. Don't misunderstand me, but take nothing for granted. President Trump is up against the greatest evils that any president has ever been up against. So that's why I tell you all the time, like my old daddy said, we got to campaign for Donald Trump like he's 2 votes behind, and the next 2 people we see are the 2 that are going to put him over the top, because he's going to do his part. We got to do ours. But keep in mind, no matter what, the Democrats and Joe Biden, old bloated Joe, he dead Joe, whatever, creepy Punxsutawney Phil Joe, he's going to start out with a heck of an advantage, whoever the Democratic nominee is, because they're going to win California. They're going to win Illinois, they're going to win Massachusetts, and they're going to win the state of New York, no matter what we do for the most part. And I feel for y'all living in those states. I'm saying work hard. Miracles do happen, so I'm not trying to discourage you. I'm just trying to encourage people to do what they need to do to get President Trump reelected, because the Democrat is going to start out with an advantage. They just do. But Biden has always been a lousy candidate. The only reason he's up there is Trump derangement syndrome, because what I keep telling you, this election is not about Joe Biden. If it is, it's already over. Trump's going to win, yes, in a landslide. It is about Donald Trump. What if his base stays solid, which I see every indication they will, and what the American people overall think of Donald Trump as president and moving forward through and getting us, making America great again. That's what it's about. But back to this article. This is an interesting paragraph here. It says, in an effort to ease concerns about his age, the 77-year-old, talking about Biden, presumptive Democratic nominee, has said he wouldn't seek re-election if his mental or physical health declined. So he's not going to seek re-election if his mental or physical health decline. Well, to use the Democratic phrase, if true, then what the heck are you running for now? Because anybody who's been watching you, Joe, over the last few months, let alone last couple of years, know for a fact your mental and physical health has declined. I mean, you can't even make a coherent sentence. Your eyes blowing up, your teeth are falling out, all that kind of stuff, which is just normal for people getting, approaching 80 rapidly, that kind of thing. I'm not wishing it on him. It's just a fact. So if that's the criteria for you running for re-election, why are you running in the first place? It's only going to get worse. He also, talking about Biden, has also referred to himself as a transition candidate. And transitioning to what? Fundamentally changing America. Let me just tell you, when you hear some politicians, especially the ones on the left, saying we need to fundamentally change America, what they mean is to obliterate the Constitution. That's what they're actually talking about. But it says he has referred to himself as a transition candidate, acting as a bridge to a younger generation of leadership. Did he steal that from me? Because I've been saying that for a while. That's kind of one of the themes of my show. I hadn't said this in a while, but of course, if I say it, it bears repeating. One of the things I see as needing to do with this show is that we are that bridge. I look at a bridge, a bridge can go both ways. And I really believe that my generation is kind of the last vestige of the founders, so to speak, of the founding fathers, the pillars of our society. I'm not necessarily saying that's me, but I'd like to think I am. But we're taking a message that's not being taught in school, might be homeschooled now. That might be another silver lining, getting our real history taught at home. But to the young people that are just basically like this, staring in their cell phones, waking them up, that kind of thing, melting a few snowflakes along the way, but getting you truly woke to where we've come. In other words, what we've had in this country, what we are losing, and what the future could be. That's kind of what I'm all about here. So, if to take the phrase, I think Biden stole it from me, a bridge to younger generation of leadership. If I could accomplish any of that, man, I would be a happy man. But back to the story. Biden has not ruled out running for a second term, in part because such an explicit pledge would immediately render him a lame duck. That's probably true. In Washington, where political capital will be needed to manage coronavirus recovery. Well, one thing for sure, he's going to be a limping duck. I mean, is there anybody really passionate about Joe Biden? My son asked me this a few months ago during the height of the 2020 primary. Is there anybody who's really passionate? I haven't even seen a bumper sticker for Joe Biden. I don't know anybody that, if I get on a Facebook debate with anybody about Biden, they don't say one word about him. They'll make some kind of comment, and I'll chime in on it, and their direct response is just anti-Trump vehemence. There's passion against Donald Trump. There's certainly passion for him, but there's no passion for Joe Biden. And most people who are opposed to Joe Biden, that I find, actually feel somewhat sorry for him. But the question of his long-term prospects looms over his candidacy, especially as he considers his options for vice president. Long-term. He's a long-term prospect. He can't even complete a short-term sentence, let alone a long-term prospect. You know who's probably the most surprised that Joe Biden is in the position he is in? Joe Biden. I tell you that right now. He's probably shocked. While someone like Elizabeth Warren, they're talking about the choices for his VP, while someone like old Wapa, as I affectionately call her, Elizabeth Warren, could broaden Biden's appeal among progressives, the 70-year-old Massachusetts senator, Miss Pocahontas, as the president calls her, would be the face of a new wouldn't be the face of a new generation many in the party are seeking. She can be whatever you want her to be. I mean, not only can you do that as a Democrat in general, but she's proven that she can be an Indian chief or a librarian, a lawyer, just an average citizen, or even a beer drinker, although she don't seem to know how to work that. But that might be an advantage for younger contenders such as California Senator Kamala Harris, 55, or Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar, 59. Now, I've been telling you for a while, and I've ebbed a little bit on it, but I've been thinking that Kamala is going to be his choice for a while. I don't think it's going to be Michelle. I don't think it's being Michelle Obama, because I don't think the Obamas want to take the pay cut again. I don't think they're I mean, they're making hundreds of millions of dollars now, and so I just don't see them. They're living the life of Riley, man. I just don't see them going back to it. But Kamala Harris is probably what I would say right now would be the one I'm guessing at the moment. And the only question for Kamala, I mean, I don't know if you've been watching. I've watched a little bit of Joe's stuff from his basement. Is there a couch in that basement? Is there? I don't know. If there is, Kamala, you got a real shot, baby. Said Eric Hauser, who is press secretary for Bill Bradley's primary run in 2000 against Al Gore, you know, the guy that should have been the hanging Chad president, right? Even if Biden wins, this is what Mr. Eric Hauser said. He said, even if Biden wins and says he's going to run again in 2024, he's absolutely going to be challenged from within the party. So this man is saying that even if Biden actually wins, he's going to get primary. Does that mean that this is not the guy they want to start with? I think that's actually fairly obvious. Pretty good statement here. He said the left has felt like it was hoodwinked twice in 2016, he's talking about, and now he said they feel overlooked. Now, is he talking about Bernie people? Because it sounds to me like he's talking about the Bernie Sanders vote. They got hoodwinked in 2016 and been overlooked in 2020. Well, I don't know if they've been hoodwinked or overlooked. They dadgum sure been sold out twice. I mean, Bernie Sanders sold you guys out. I know you hate to hear it. A lot of you won't agree with me, but Bernie Sanders has sold you out multiple times. And the reason is Bernie ain't no revolutionary. Now, he's a communist, but he's no revolutionary. He likes all the stuff. I mean, he's a perfect communist because he wants you to do what he says, not what he does. He wants you to live poor while he's living high. That's what communists always do. So Bernie has sold you out now 2 times. And here's the best example. I hadn't talked about this in a while, but as I say, it does bear repeating. Ocasio-Cortez, who is like the golden child of the progressive left, right? I call them the Twitter twats, but that's another story. Some people don't like that, but I think it's more descriptive. Just me. Some of us are sicker than others. You have to bear with me. I got good and bad. But Ocasio-Cortez, you remember when she ran, and some people gave me a hard time when I've said this, Ocasio-Cortez ran a fantastic campaign. I'm not saying I agree with anything about her. I hope she is a one-term person, for God's sakes. But she ran a fantastic campaign. She beat like a 26-year incumbent. She worked her butt off, and I admire that aspect alone. That's it. That's all I'm saying. As one political junkie to another, she worked super hard. But here's the thing for you Bernie people and Ocasio-Cortez fans. Bernie did not support Ocasio-Cortez's bid for Congress. He did not. He supported the 26-year veteran Crowley for Congress over Ocasio-Cortez. He didn't get on the AOC bandwagon until she won, and he was trying to tie onto her coattails here, especially like in the state of Florida and other places. So all of you who are big fans of Ocasio-Cortez realize that Bernie was an establishment person all along. If you want to join a revolution, there's one already in progress. It's called the Trump train. Get on board. Woo-hoo. The Trump train is the true revolution. Bernie, yes, perfect communist. Revolutionary? No, not by a long shot. Gilberto, back to the article. Gilberto Hinojosa, chairman of the Texas Democratic Party. I guess there is a Democratic Party in Texas. Biden's choice of running mate will have to fill twin roles, talking about the VP. That person would need to continue to move the country away from the Trump era if something were to happen while he's still in office. So if Biden were to like fall over dead or say, where am I, man? This ain't my house. Anyway, he leave office. Or later, if Biden decides to retire and pass the baton. Well, I ran all my life to get here. I finally got here. I think I'll just retire. But I love the statement here because it's very profound. It's very true. I don't know if they meant it to be profound, but it is. As I tell you about progressives, you don't have to guess where they're coming from. If you just listen to what they're saying and take them at their word, it's all you need to know. It's really simple. Yeah, and when they live up to what they say. And this part right here where they say to move away from the Trump era, that is all this campaign is about for them. It's not about Joe Biden. It's not about his vice president. It is about DJT and Trump derangement syndrome. That's all this is for the left. They have nothing. What can they run on besides hate Trump? That's it. Now it's going to be a question because in past elections, you had to be for something. You could hate all you wanted, but at some point, people vote for something. So I don't know that the Democrats are making a strong case for anything except keeping us shut down to the end of time. You know, as Eric Trump got in a little trouble over the weekend, I guess when I say trouble, the media attacked him, which is, you know, par for the course, when he basically insinuated that all the stay-at-home orders would end on Wednesday after the election in November. And he's probably got a point there. But he was called everything but a child of God for talking about that. All right, we got a few more minutes left, and we're going to go to a Mercury News story, back out to the California, to the Gold Coast, the stool of the, used to be the jewel, now the stool. And this is basically telling liberals how to live in Corona land. People who are coming out of hiding in San Francisco, how do you do it? First off, are they coming out? But this is a guide here. I thought it was pretty interesting. Coronavirus, how to decide the risk we're willing to take to venture out. Is it safe to go out of the cave? No, especially not in San Francisco. Watch your step and your back. As an infectious disease expert, Dr. George Rutherford knows all about the horrors of COVID-19. But there's one risk that the UC San Francisco professor wearing a mask is willing to take. He's willing to hug his 2-year-old granddaughter. Oh, ain't that cute? And I understand that, man. I got granddaughters. I when I came home from fishing Sunday, my little over 2-year-old granddaughter met me at the door, man. And the first thing I wanted was a big papa. That's what she called me. I said, give me a big papa hug. And she was ready to do it. So I get it. There's a lot of things we all have in common. But this is kind of a liberal survival guide. Listen to some of this stuff. For 2 months, we've been diligent about staying at home. But as Bay Area residents start to venture out with parts of the state gradually loosening lockdown restrictions, how do we navigate, they're talking about Californians, how do we navigate this new landscape of peril and promise? Boy, there you, peril and promises. We can't stay isolated and fearful forever. Well, sure you can. You absolutely can. I mean, the governor of California says schools are going to be closed to the foreseeable future. Garcetti has essentially said that LA is going to be closed for months from now. And, the government under Democrats like Kamala Harris, for instance, another Californian, maybe VP candidate, is pushing for incomes up to $6,000 guaranteed a month for a married couple with 2 children. So that'll probably make a lot of people out in California get married and everywhere else. But she says that this, and when Kamala Harris was asked how long should these payments continue, she said until the crisis is over. Well, that would be never. If you're making $6,000 a month, when will your crisis be over? When they cut the check, you'll be back in crisis again. So it'll last forever, man. Here's a term that I'm beginning to hate. The new normal looks like this. I don't like that term. Social lives carefully built around risk and reduction rather than strict absolute safety of isolated sheltering. The new normal. So they're basically saying the new normal is what? Corona land. I'm more of a constitutionalist. You know, the virus can come and go, but our Constitution, we can't afford to lose it. And there is no vaccination against that except the blood of patriots, I suppose. Said Stanford University communications professor Jeff Hancock, founding director of the Stanford Social Media Lab. Boy, all these progressives, man, they got so many. No wonder they got so many genders, A, B, C, because they love the alphabet, man. They just put it out there, man. But Professor Mr. Hancock said check this out. One of his specialties now is studying compliance with stay-at-home orders. So this guy's getting paid to study the rest of us staying at the house. I mean, wow. We need to balance. Here's what he said. And this is what your tax dollars in California and probably federal dollars as well are paying for. This is the statement he made out of his research. We need to balance our needs with what we know about the coronavirus, and it gets better here. But isn't that what we've been doing already? Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing now? I mean, everybody's supposed to be doing that. But he goes on to say, abstinence doesn't work. You know, It doesn't. What's he talking about? Is he going to invent like a Corona condom where you just basically, when you get out of bed, you just suit up and looks like one big condom? I don't know. Abstinence doesn't work. Plans that are practical. You know, for everybody who's ever tried abstinence, like friends of mine, when they announce that they're getting ready to have a baby, one of the things I always congratulate them, but I always kind of say snidely, and you can use, you want you say, you know, they've done a lot of research and they found out what causes that. It's not abstinence, that's for sure. But abstinence doesn't work. Plans that are practical and recognize basic human needs will be more successful than those plans that don't, he said. Do we need this is the professor, do we need a vacation in Costa Rica? I know a lot of y'all are debating that. With lots of friends. No, we need intimate and social moments. Yes. So I can tell you that's a big topic where I live. And I know some of you talk about, I get people every now and you're a dumbass hillbilly. Well, there ain't no hills in Florida where I live. I hate that. The other part may be guilty, but hillbilly, I can't possibly be a hillbilly because there's no hills where I live. But it is a big topic. People where I live are constantly talking about, they're balancing, when I get out of lockdown, do I go to Costa Rica with a bunch of my friends, or do I just like have a kumbaya moment, man? I mean, they must be getting a whole lot more stimulus check than I am. That's all I can say. Emerging research shows that the most dangerous settings are large By the way, I'm not opposed to going to Costa Rica. I heard they got great fishing. So if you're planning a trip and you want a supervisor, let me know. Emerging research shows that the most dangerous settings are large gatherings of mixed social groups where people who don't know each other are close, sing, chant, and commingle. In other words, a Trump rally. Doesn't that pretty much describe a Trump rally? I bet their heads spin when I say that. Think San Francisco Outside Lands Festival, where music lovers from far-flung locales are crowded together for hours. Indoor and confined areas like bars and restaurants are much worse than any solitary outdoor recreational search such as golf or hiking. And this is the part. Now, how many millions did they pay this guy for this quote right here? He said, and time matters. Brief moments of contact are better than hours long. Now, well, I mean, I tell you, I think I could have come up with that on my own. I mean, now we're talking about all this way of evaluating people. Well, you got to evaluate your relationship. Are you corona worthy? Is she corona? Man, look at that one there. She's corona worthy. I mean, that's what you got to look at now. All right. Well, we're pretty much out of time. Thanks for tuning in to the show today. There's more to this article. Check it out. Hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please like John Martin Talks Facebook page and share it with others. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. But above all else, like I say each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours, have a blessed day.